Your choices are being controlled by traumas you don't even remember. In this video, you're going to learn to feel, physically, unmistakably, the difference between true intuition and a trauma defense. Wearing intuition's clothes, there are old alarms going off inside you, making decisions you believe are yours, but they belong to a past that was never integrated. Relationships that repeat, opportunities you abort, sabotages that masquerade as spiritual protection. You think you're steering, but unseen hands are on the wheel. All of this happens because your body confuses survival with wisdom. If you abandon this video, you'll keep living commanded by invisible scars while believing you're in control. Most people spend their whole lives obeying fear disguised as inner guidance. What's about to be revealed here shows exactly how your body manufactures these false signals and how you can deactivate this mechanism now, gently, reliably, from the inside out. When the nervous system operates under threat, even quiet, even chronic, even so familiar you barely notice, it produces visceral sensations that perfectly mimic the texture of legitimate intuition. Tightness in the chest that feels like a premonition, an urge to pull back that you interpret as discernment. Contraction dressed up as preventive wisdom. These are echoes of ancient protection, triggered by memories the body stored without words. A museum of felt experiences catalogued as tension rather than story. You're going to learn to identify with physical precision when you're listening to your essence or just responding to scars that never healed. The body only responds to the present when it's regulated, safe, anchored. When dysregulated, it relives the past as if it were now. Every sensation of don't go may be nothing more than an outdated survival protocol still humming in the background. What if that alarm isn't truth, but merely history? What you're about to receive is an internal map that returns to the body the ability to choose without interference from inherited alarms. The difference between expansion and contraction, between presence and reaction, between you and the trauma that still speaks for you. Imagine holding a compass that doesn't point north to old fear, but toward your living now. The corpus hermeticum described invisible forces that manipulate man until he awakens to himself. What the ancients called bodily gnosis, direct knowing through the flesh, neuroscience today names somatic integration. The body was seen as a vibrational mirror, a surface where everything that never became words is recorded as tension, as a knot, as an alarm ready to go off. Every unintegrated experience leaves a somatic record that doesn't need conscious memory to be activated. A sentence your tissues keep reading long after. Your mind has closed the book. Polyvagal theory mapped 3 states of the autonomic nervous system. Ventral vagal, where there is presence, connection, and safety. Sympathetic, where there is fight, flight, and hypervigilance. Dorsal vagal, where there is freezing, disconnection, and paralysis. Your body moves among these states without you noticing, responding to threats that may no longer exist. Traumas live in the tissue without narrative, somatic, implicit memory, triggering visceral reactions you interpret as divine guidance. If you only listen to sensation without context, you'll mistake a siren for a song. Transgenerational epigenetics revealed something even deeper. You carry survival responses inherited from previous generations, alarms your ancestors needed, but you don't. Neural circuits that detect danger before consciousness processes any information. The body decides, and only then the mind justifies. What comes now is the practice that deactivates these ancient alarms and gives choice back to the body, back to your center, back to the you who can discern with clarity rather than reflex. The first step is to recognize which state your nervous system is operating in right now. Ventral vagal is the state of true presence. Breath drops fully down into the lower belly. Chest open, clarity without hurry, the capacity to feel nuance. There is no urgency, no armed defense. Your hands are warm, your jaw is loose, your gaze can hold contact without looking away. This is the only state where intuition speaks, because the body is anchored in the present and has room for truth to land. When the fight or flight response activates, everything changes. The breath rises into the thorax. It becomes short, fast, stuck. The chest tightens, the heart races, the hands cool. A sense of urgency appears that's disproportionate to what's happening. I need to get out now. I need to decide right now. This isn't safe. You might interpret this as a premonition, but it's just the body activating defense. The mind then justifies. It spins narratives about why that is dangerous, but the decision has already been made by the somatic alarm. The story arrives after the shout. Freezing is subtler, and therefore more dangerous. There's no urgency, there's disconnection. Your breath becomes shallow, almost imperceptible. You feel heaviness in the body, slowness, a kind of emotional anesthesia. Phrases like whatever, it doesn't matter, I don't feel anything show up. This isn't spiritual neutrality, it's paralysis. The body shut down so it wouldn't feel. When you call that absence being at peace, you're confusing traumatic shutdown with presence. Numb is not wise, it's just quiet. Here's the problem. Implicit memories, the ones that never became words, that were recorded only as sensation, trigger these states without you noticing. A smell, a tone of voice, someone's posture in front of you can activate defense or freezing in milliseconds. You don't consciously remember what happened, but the body does. And it acts as if the threat was still here, like a guard dog barking at a shadow that once was a thief. So you feel that contraction in the solar plexus and think, my intuition is telling me not to go. But it isn't intuition. It's the body responding to something that happened 5, 10, 20 years ago, or that happened to someone in your lineage and was transmitted epigenetically. The alarm goes off, you obey, and you call it wisdom. Meanwhile, real opportunities are aborted, safe people are pushed away, legitimate paths are blocked. Safety theater replaces authentic discernment. The difference between intuition and defense is here. Intuition allows a complete breath, even in the face of the unknown. Defense locks the air, contracts the center, paralyzes. Intuition expands. Defense closes. Intuition is slow, clear, peaceful. Defense is urgent, nebulous, agitated. Now you know what to look for. The next step is learning how to check, in your own body, which signal is active, and to practice that check until it becomes your new reflex. The second step is to understand that some of these reactions aren't even yours. Behavioral epigenetics has shown that traumas from previous generations alter genetic markers and can be transmitted biologically. You may be carrying survival instructions your grandparents, great-grandparents, or even entire lineages needed. But you don't. The body inherited the protocol, but not the context. And it keeps running defenses that no longer apply, loyal to a past that never asked permission to live inside you. That visceral sensation of don't trust may not be your experience. It may belong to someone who was betrayed and never recovered. That impulse to pull back from intimacy may not be your fear. It may be someone's who was abandoned and etched into the epigenetic field. Don't get close. It hurts too much. The body doesn't distinguish origin. It simply executes the protection contract that was never rescinded, following orders that no one remembered to cancel. These are invisible somatic contracts, defense protocols that were useful in another time, in another body, but remain active in you, freezing in the face of abundance, because in some generation, abundance meant danger or sudden loss, fleeing from opportunities, because at some point in the lineage, opportunity came, paired with betrayal or collapse, sabotage in the face of visibility, because being seen once meant being attacked. The body isn't malicious, it's faithful. You interpret these reactions as spiritual discernment. I'm not ready. This isn't for me. Something's not right. But in truth, it's just an inherited alarm still going off, with no real threat in the present. The body is responding to a story that isn't yours, but that was recorded as if it were. And until you check the origin of this signal, you'll keep obeying someone else's past, who is deciding your essence, or an ancestor's wound echoing through your nerves. The good news is that the body can also unlearn. It can release contracts that no longer belong to this time, this life, to you. But for that, you need a verification protocol, a way to ask the body directly, is this my present or my past? Does this expand me or contract me? And to feel the answer not with the mind, but with the breath, with the center, with the hands. This isn't positive thinking, it's precise sensing. What comes now is exactly that tool. A ritual of somatic listening that returns to the body the ability to distinguish between true wisdom and inherited survival, between the voice of your essence and the echo of scars that were never yours, between what protects you now and what only pretends to. The third step is the practice that brings this distinction into the body. 3 anchoring points. The solar plexus, where true visceral discernment lives. The diaphragm, where the breath reveals whether you're expanding or contracting. And the hands, somatic extensions of yes and no. In the face of any decision or sensation of don't go, you place one hand on the solar plexus and the other on the diaphragm. Take a deep breath, pause for 3 seconds at the top of the inhale, and ask internally, is this my present or my past? Don't expect a mental answer. Don't look for words, justifications, or narratives. Feel the quality of the breath that comes next. Does it flow fully, dropping into the lower belly, or does it lock in the chest? Does the solar plexus soften or harden? Do the hands warm, indicating circulation of presence, or cool, signaling retraction? This is the vibrational code the body has always known how to speak. You just never stopped to listen with precision. Listening is the new intelligence. Real intuition allows a complete breath, even in the face of the unknown. There is expansion in the chest, warmth in the center, peaceful clarity. Defense locks the air in the thorax, contracts the solar plexus, cools the extremities. Urgency, rush, sudden closure, all of that is alarm, not wisdom. When you learn to check this in the body, without the mind's intermediation, decisions cease to be bets and become conscious choices. You move from guessing to knowing. This verification doesn't promise absolute certainty about the future, but it gives the body back the chance to choose, not just react, to respond to what is here now, not to what happened before, to hear your essence, not inherited scars. And for the first time, you feel the difference between being alive and merely surviving. Aliveness breathes, survival holds its breath. Claire, at 43, lived a pattern she called selective intuition. Whenever something important arose, a relationship that promised depth, an opportunity to lead a visible project, an invitation to step out of her comfort zone, her body reacted the same way. Contracted solar plexus, breath locked in the chest, an urge to retreat. She always obeyed, convinced she was following her inner voice, until the day she realized every door she'd closed required her to be seen, and she could never understand why the light felt like danger. It was in a conversation with a friend that Claire first heard about somatic memory and inherited responses. The idea destabilized her. What if what I call intuition is just ancient fear? She began to investigate. She read about the body responding to the past, about alarms going off without a real threat in the present. She learned it was possible to check, physically, whether a sensation was wisdom or just defense. She decided to test it the next time the contraction came, not to conquer it, but to examine it. Weeks later, a new opportunity arrived. The contraction fired instantly, but this time Claire stopped. She placed one hand on her solar plexus, the other on her diaphragm. She took a deep breath, paused 3 seconds at the top of the inhale, and asked internally, "Is this my present or my past?" She didn't wait for a mental answer. She just felt. The breath tried to lock, the center hardened, the hands cooled. But for the first time, Claire noticed that wasn't hers. It was an inherited protocol, a defense from someone who had learned that being seen was dangerous, a contract she never signed. She chose to breathe through the contraction. She kept her hands on the anchoring points, let the air drop fully into the lower belly. The solar plexus began to soften. Her hands warmed. And then a peaceful clarity arrived, without urgency, without fear. Real intuition. Claire accepted the opportunity, and for the first time in her life, she felt that the one choosing was her, not someone else's scar, not an outdated alarm. Just her, present, free. The stage lights became an invitation instead of a threat. Integration happens when you recognize, in your own body, the signals that you are present and not merely reacting. Breath that drops fully into the lower belly, without locking in the chest. Jaw that softens, releasing chronic tension. Warmth in the center of the chest, indicating circulation of presence. Solar plexus that is no longer permanently armed. These are measurable physical markers, not abstract concepts, but trackable sensations that prove the body is responding to the now. What you can feel, you can trust. What you can track, you can train. The anchoring gesture is to lightly touch the solar plexus whenever you notice automatic contraction arising. Just touch, pause, feel whether there's warmth or cold, whether there's opening or closure. This touch works like a somatic switch. It breaks the defense's autopilot and brings you back to the present. When the old alarm goes off again, and it will, this is the return point. Physical pause. Hand at the center. Attention on the quality of the breath. There is no fight. Only bodily remembrance that you can check before you obey. You become the observer who chooses, not the body that flinches. The greatest revolution you can live doesn't happen in the mind. It happens when the body finally frees itself from responding to what no longer exists. For years, you obeyed alarms that weren't yours, called defense wisdom, confused survival with divine guidance. Now you know the difference, and knowing the difference changes everything. Because for the first time, you can choose without invisible scars. Choosing for you, choice becomes an act of presence, not an echo of fear. True intuition doesn't shout, doesn't pressure, doesn't lock your breath. It comes in silence, in expansion, in peace, even in the face of the unknown. It's the voice that only speaks when the body is regulated, when the nervous system recognizes it's safe enough to hear the sacred. Everything else is just echo, memory repeating the past, alarm running an old protocol, defense disguised as spirituality. Wisdom is spacious, fear is cramped. The philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti said, "Freedom only begins when you realize you are not the voice in your head, nor the reaction in your body. You are the one who observes both, and observing, without blindly obeying, is what gives the body back its original dignity." God speaks through intuition, but only when the nervous system is at peace. When there is inner war, there is only noise. When there is presence, there is a direct channel. The calmer the waters, the clearer the reflection. What you received here wasn't a self-help technique. It was the restoration of something that was always yours. The ability to feel the present without interference from the past. To check, in your own body, whether that sensation is wisdom or just inherited survival. To breathe through contraction and choose to expand. To be free, truly free, for the first time, free not because fear vanished, but because you stopped mistaking fear for guidance. And real freedom isn't the absence of fear. It's the courage to check whether the fear you feel belongs to this moment, or whether it's just an alarm from a threat that no longer exists. When you stop obeying somatic contracts you never signed, the body finally remembers what it is to be alive. And everything begins again, but this time with you choosing, breath by breath, decision by decision. If this content resonated with you, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. This expands the reach of this information and allows more people to access what the body has always known but was never taught to hear. I want to know how you're feeling this distinction in your own body. Write in the comments, "My traumas no longer decide for me." This statement seals your presence on the path of conscious choice, a small sentence that opens a much larger door. Share this video with someone you know is stuck in repetitive patterns, obeying alarms that don't belong to this life. And don't stop here. Click on the screen and dive into another transformative video on the channel. Each layer of somatic consciousness you integrate brings you closer to true freedom. Remember, when you stop obeying trauma as if it were wisdom, the body finally regains the right to choose. And conscious choice is the only real path to the life you came here to live. The life that's been waiting for you beneath the noise, beneath the alarms, in the simple honesty of a full, unhurried breath.